Joining me now, Leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh. Always good to have you on the program. You and I spoke. I know you're going to support this budget, but all you got here from a specific point of view was a $330 million down payment on the dental plan. I know that's important. Why was that enough to make this deal work for you and support the budget?
Well, that's not all we got, but it's not something we can underestimate the impact. Like, I've spoken to so many people that can't get their teeth fixed, and this will be life-changing to be able to go to the dentist. This is the biggest expansion of public health care in a generation, so it's not insignificant. It's significant and meaningful, and people will be able to get their teeth fixed. On top of that, we push for massive improvements on the affordable housing front. The definition of affordable housing, as per the Liberals, would mean that in a city like Montreal, that $2,200 was considered affordable. With our new definition that we brought in, affordability has dropped to under $800. That's a significant change. And before, the buildings would only have 20% of affordable units. Now we double that to 40%. So that definition is also a game changer.
Okay. Let's talk about housing then, because it's key for the Liberals. They're trying to make it the cornerstone, $10 billion over 5 years. But let's talk about essentially the tax-free savings account for first-time home buyers. They can put up to $40,000 over 4 years, and they can take it out tax-free. Not insignificant. But none of the measures, that measure, banning foreign buyers, none of it materially is going to lower the price of houses. In other words, they're incremental helps, but they're not transformational. What's the transformational fix for housing?
Well, there's two parts to housing. One is there are pressures that are driving up the cost of housing. Housing has become more commodified, and that's something we've got to tackle. So ways to do that, getting at property flipping, looking at the capital gains around people who have secondary or third homes, not the primary residence, but looking at capital gains. It's incentivizing using property as like a stock market, as a vehicle to make more money.
I'm not trying to interrupt you, but they did do something on flipping, as you know. They did. There's a penalty for flipping within the first 12 months. And I want to be clear on, capital gains is an issue. Are you pushing at all for any capital gains taxes on selling a primary residence? Because there's already capital gains on selling a secondary residence.
No, not on primary residence, but on secondary or investment properties. What we've seen is it's been incentivized by the lower capital gains for assets like that. That's incentivizing a market that's driving up the cost of housing. And so that's something that we propose in our campaign to get at, to look at real systemic changes to tackle the pressures driving up housing. And then we need to invest in building more supply in a massive way. So we push the Liberals to go far further than they would have gone, but for the fact that we had this agreement. And it made them change the definition, which is going to be a game changer for the builds of homes that are actually affordable, on top of more money to build homes right away.
Okay, the environment. I'm trying to just figure out how you balance, because part of what you're doing by supporting them and keeping them in power for 3 years is it's a trade-off, right? I like dental care, but I don't like what they're doing on the environment. Two things on the environment. One, they just gave approval to Bay du Nord, the deep water drilling off Newfoundland and Labrador. That'll, when it comes online in a number of years, 3, 4, or 5 years, 200,000 barrels of oil a day. Yes, it's low-cost emissions to extract, but they still got to burn the emissions. That's a different thing. And two, they've got very big subsidies for carbon capture and storage in this. That's a huge part of this budget. You don't support those things, so how do you support this government keeping them in power?
We're going to continue to say it's wrong. We're going to say that that approach is wrong, that we believe very strongly public money should go to workers, should go to renewable and clean energy, and should not be going towards subsidizing profitable oil and gas companies. But what you're suggesting is when people are telling us they want Ottawa to work, they sent us here just 6 months ago to get help to people. And we got dental care, the biggest expansion of public health care in a generation, that the only way we can do anything is to then force an election where people will spend weeks and weeks dealing with that instead of getting help that they need. I don't accept that. I don't think that's the only way we can get help to people.
But you're making a choice in doing that. You're saying, look, I want to force them to get dental care or pharmacare, and by your own admission, the cost is to the environment. So you're making a choice here. You're saying,
no.
look,
The choice weren't. The Liberals are making a choice.
well, wait,
the
you
Liberals,
can't have both. You
they
can't
are in
claim
government.
credit for their policies when you like them.
Absolutely, we can.
And then not take credit when you don't like them.
That's exactly what we're going to do.
But you're keeping them in
No,
power.
no. Okay, you think that Canadians want to go to an election just 6 months after? You think that would be respectful to the
I'm
choice?
just saying it's not a
but
political buffet
But let
to
me
say,
finish.
thank you,
Let me finish my thought.
mine, environment's
Who's in
theirs.
government right now? The Liberals are in government.
Okay.
They make choices, and that's their decision. We look at the opportunity that we have to get people help. If the Liberals are bad on the environment, the Liberals are bad on the environment. If we're getting dental care, that's expressly and clearly because we made them do it. They just voted against it, and now we made it happen.
But you know the argument in an environmentalist
right now, the
will
Prime
say-
Minister and the government are making decisions. That's their decision. We use this position to get people the help they need. And we're critical of bad decisions, and we will raise those concerns.
But because I think it's important to explore, because the confidence and supply agreement that you've struck with the Liberals will keep them in power for 3 years, right? That means those are critical years when it comes to the environment. If it's so important to you and you don't like subsidies, you're propping up a government that does carbon capture and storage. You just propped up a government that did Bay du Nord. A lot of people like that. You don't, though. How are you absolving yourself from responsibility? It's your agreement to keep them in power.
There's no question that we would make different choices if we were in government. But given the opportunity we have right now to get dental care to people, to help them find a home that's in their budget, there is no question in my mind that that is the right thing to do, to fight to get people the help they need. And we'll continue to fight on things that we disagree on. We're going to continue to oppose their decisions and raise concerns about things like the increasing subsidies to profitable fossil fuel companies instead of increasing investments in renewable energy. We will raise those concerns.
But is your just last question, because I think the politics of this is interesting. Is your leverage on that stuff kind of weak? Because now that they've made the deal, the $330 million they gave for dental care, they say, well, Jagmeet Singh can say all he wants about the environment. We've got his vote anyway. And your leverage goes from here, and immediately it goes to nothing because you have no political leverage over them now.
Well, really, at the end of the day, this is about what people chose. People chose a government. I respect the choice of people. I don't agree with the decisions that this government's making, but people chose this government in a full and fair election. In this context of a minority government where we were just voted into power 6 months ago, I'm going to look for every opportunity to help people out. And I think it would be irresponsible 6 months after an election to say, okay, now we're going to plunge the country into another election when we're dealing with the cost of living going up, when we're dealing with a war that makes us all feel less safe, and when we're dealing with a pandemic still. I think the responsible thing to do is to get help to people and to use our power to deliver it, and that's what we did.
Okay, I got to leave it there. Always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.